Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us either via LinkedIn or if you're watching this as a recording later via YouTube. Your time is valuable, so we'll get started straight away. My name is Ian Swanston and welcome to B2B Remote Selling through COVID. If you're a salesperson, a sales manager or a CEO, and if you're maybe managing a team of salespeople, this is for you. What do we know about remote selling? Well, traditionally, our own business was 100% face-to-face. No one would purchase sales training without meeting with us first. However, I'm sure, like many of you through COVID, that was changed. And now 100% of our business is online. 100% of the business development and the selling is now online. And the good thing about this is that since buyers were forced to buy online, it's opened up new markets and a whole new world for us, and I'm sure many others. So maybe the silver lining to the cloud is going to be good for hopefully many of you as well as us. Lastly, everything we're going to share with you here is taken from what we implement in our own business. So it's 100% real. We only teach the sales strategies and sales tactics that we use ourselves. So this gives us a really deep understanding of what it is that we're doing and helps us with our training. Please use the Q&A function before I forget. Although if you've ever been on a Teams live event before, I believe there's around a 20-second delay in the questions coming through. So I would encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. If I manage to catch them as they come through, I will. But if not, I promise to answer them at the end. Feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. If you've got any questions, you can contact us there. So let's get started. Okay. Some of the webinars that we do are focused on skills and tactics, and we use those to obviously drive more sales. If that's what you're looking for, I would ask you if you could just make a note, write down remote sales coaching. If you just Google that after this webinar, you'll find an article from Closers there on remote sales coaching and training. So if you're looking for more of the tactical things, please feel free to dive into that. Today's session is going to be much more around the big picture of remote selling, hopefully to try and get you to take on board the size of the prize, the potential opportunity that's out there for all of us. So this session isn't about Teams. It's not about how to make a great Zoom presentation. I'm sure you're already doing that. So this is much more around what we call the box 2 thinking. If you're familiar with Eisenhower's decision matrix, box 2 is what's called the important, non-urgent stuff. And most of us tend to live in box 1, which is the important and urgent stuff. However, if you really want to grow your business, if you really want to grow your sales, box 2 is somewhere where you need to spend probably more time than you may well be doing at the moment. I'm sure if you're a business owner or even if you're a salesperson, you'll have heard the phrase about working on the business versus in the business. So box 1, right, is the important, urgent stuff. That is box 1, that's working in the business. Box 2, the important, non-urgent stuff, is strategy, goals, planning. That's the stuff that's in box 2, which is important, very important. You could argue more important, but it's not particularly urgent. And because it's not urgent, it tends to get overlooked. It tends to get forgotten about, and even sometimes it's ignored. So I completely understand that remote selling is obviously going to be different for everybody on this call, and your approach is going to be different depending if you're, let's pretend you're a small brand, a small startup, versus some of the big brands. I know there was, from the registration list, there was some large enterprise corporations that signed on for this. So your sales is going to be slightly different for you in terms of the context of your business. If you're selling SaaS versus if you're selling capital equipment, it's going to be slightly different. And if you're potentially working in a local territory versus trying to develop an international market, this is going to be different. So, excuse me, if you have any questions regarding the context and how you can apply that, again, feel free to message me. You can get us on Teams, you can get us on LinkedIn. And we're more than happy to talk through anything that we've discussed on the slides today. So the first slide there, strategic versus tactical. If I can just try and spend a couple of minutes to explain this. So if you can imagine a staircase or a ladder, the tactical stuff, right, is what's going to transition you to what we would describe as the first step of the ladder, the next step of your stairwell. And that's great, because it's going to get you moving in the right direction. It's going to help you get more sales and build your confidence. However, strategy, right, is going to, that's really what you need to transform your business, to transform your sales. And that's much more about, the mindset and the big picture thinking that's going to help you move 10 levels. And I'm not going to suggest that you can move 10 levels overnight. It is literally a journey that you're going to be on, but this has definitely helped us, definitely helped our thinking, and helped with our planning, so that we understand and we know what that big picture is, and we're always tracking that big picture, rather than getting bogged down in the tactical stuff, which I'm not going to say is not important. It's all important, but you're never going to scale and grow your business or your sales if you're just focusing on the tactical things. So number one, and I'm sure some of you on this call are already groaning. I've got another person talking about mindset. I've heard this from a million people before. I can honestly say I never get tired of talking about mindset. It's so important, especially with remote selling. And when you think of the things that we've gone through COVID. We're going through a terrible war in Ukraine at the moment. All the different things that we're going through. Many businesses, many salespeople have been what I would describe as survival mode. And in survival mode, it's difficult to think big. It's difficult to be creative. And it's really difficult to focus on anything other than that day-to-day tactical stuff. And the mindset is just super important. And all I would say is, and I'm sure you would agree with this, when sales are going well, it just lifts the whole business. It lifts the mood in the organization. When sales are not going well, it's like wading through treacle. So, the more you can work on that mindset and developing the mindset, and so that it's much more positive and that people know where they're going, it's really going to help you as an organization. Just as an aside, last week or the week before, maybe we're only a small team here, but we got everybody together and we shared with them our vision and shared with them our basically our hopes and dreams and the goals that we've set for the business. And it was really amazing how by sharing those, everybody seemed to buy into them. We helped them understand where they fit. They fitted in the big picture, what their seat was on the bus, so to speak. And it was just an amazing response. So my question is to the sales leaders on the webinar here, when was the last time you shared the vision of your business? Because if you don't share the vision of your business, it's unlikely that everybody's going to be pulling in the same direction, just because they don't know what the direction is. And getting that vision, the vision should be compelling. It should draw them in, and they should absolutely want to be involved in this. And it just makes it compelling for them and really important. So think about your vision before you do that. Think about what's changed with remote selling, and think about what can you maybe do if you take our own example, where we were typically only selling within, I don't know, maybe a 200-300 mile radius within our own country, and how now we've managed, because of COVID, because of remote selling, how we've got clients literally all over the world, from Sri Lanka. We did have a client in Ukraine, but obviously they're fighting for survival, literally their own survival, not just their business survival. So, we've got clients internationally within Europe, internationally within North America. So remote selling is what's enabled us to do this. And if you think about it, what was your previous TAM, total addressable market, before COVID, before remote selling, and then think, okay, big picture, what can that be now? And typically, not for everybody, but for some of us, that's going to open up a whole new market. And if you're working in a more regional business and you're working within a maybe 100 to 200 mile radius, then again think about, well, has that total addressable market changed? Has the types of prospects, revisit your ideal client profile and figure out, where has that changed? Where can I actually move, in terms of maybe making some adjustments to my offer so that I can increase my total addressable market? But I guess what I'm saying is think big. Don't be restricted. And again, this is where the box 2 thinking comes in. You've got to be prepared to spend some time thinking big, and it's not something that is necessarily going to come in one 30-minute session. This might be something that is going to develop over the next 6 months to a year. But you should put plans in place so that you've got that box 2 thinking time set aside in your diary. And again, if you're a salesperson, so what does box 2 thinking mean for me? So what can I do in my market? What can I do to grow my particular market? How can I make an impact in different ways? And I totally understand that many salespeople are struggling to adapt to that inside selling model. If you've been a traditional field salesperson, the idea of being almost caged up like an animal in your second bedroom for the last 2 months has been a nightmare for you, and you may be desperate to get back out on the road. I'm somebody originally, many years ago, I used to do 70,000 miles on the road, and I loved it. And I know there are certain salespeople who were doing that pre-pandemic. I genuinely don't think that's coming back. I think traditional field sales is dead. I think there's going to be a hybrid model, and remote selling is going to play a huge part in that. And if you think about it, it's just not the most efficient use of your time to be visiting all these prospects, right, to qualify maybe prospects, when some of this can be done online. And also, I think what most salespeople are kind of ignoring, because it's comfortable to ignore it, but some buyers don't actually want to see you now. They're quite happy with the online platforms, the Teams calls, the Zoom calls. They're quite comfortable with that, and some of them are more comfortable with that because it gives them I would describe maybe as a sense of more protection and security from the salespeople. So I don't think the traditional field sales model is ever going to come back. I think it's going to be a hybrid model, and remote selling is going to be a huge part of that. So, we've got to get our mindset around that. We've got to stop wishing for the past, because the past is gone. Right, remote selling's here. It's here to stay, and I would suggest that the best thing that we need to do is really to just embrace it. But just in summary, in terms of mindset, I think the most important thing is getting that vision down. I'd be interested to know how many people have got a vision board, as a company and as an individual, because they are super powerful. And I could share lots of stories with of our clients who've had amazing success through their own efforts. Not through ours, but by using vision boards and helping them to keep them motivated and moving them forward. So if anybody wants to have a conversation around vision boards, please feel free to reach out to me. Next up, people. Sounds obvious, but people are the most important thing in the business. If you want to grow sales, grow the people, and they will grow the sales for you. And to the business owners and maybe the skeptics that are maybe watching this and listening to this, well, you would say that you're in sales training. I can promise you, every day that you delay investing in your people is a day closer to your top sales performer leaving. People want to learn. People want to go. Just look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People want to learn. People want to improve. They want to get better. And as an organisation, if you're not going to help them, chances are they're going to go somewhere else that will help them. So let me just repeat that. Every day you delay investing in your people is a day closer to your top performer leaving. The second thing, because it works at both ends of the scale here, every day that you delay investing in your people, your underperforming salespeople are more committed to staying. Think about it. And just think about that big picture. If your top people are leaving and the bottom performers are staying, that's hardly the recipe for success. And the bottom performers, when people are not hitting sales targets, do they need support? And as an employer, my suggestion would be that you're duty bound. If you employed them, you're duty bound to help them and support them, especially through this transition into remote selling, especially with the issues around mental well-being. Some people are almost, and I'm not laughing at this, but some people are literally becoming even more introverted, and I've almost got what I would describe as social anxiety, and are fearful of going to meet people, are fearful of going back to the office, fearful of going to a networking organisation. Well, as an organisation, we need to address this. There's no point just ignoring this. We've got to help these people and support them. And it's not all about sales training. There's lots of other different programs and services that I would suggest that you look at. A particular client I talked to this morning has had an amazing success by increasing the lunchtime to 90 minutes and offering free gym membership. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to encourage their sales teams. They're trying to encourage the sales teams to get at lunchtime to go into the gyms, work out, and come back to the office. Now, it's scientifically proven that if you're having some sort of heavy carb sandwich, and I know I'm hardly a paragon of virtue when it comes to diet and everything, but even I know that if you're going to have a whole load of carbs at lunchtime, you're going to come back, you're going to be half asleep, and you're just not going to be less productive. Well, this client of ours who's doing this, who's got these gym memberships set up for the clients, they can prove by the data and analytics their salespeople are more productive when they've come back from the gym. So there's lots of things that we can be doing that aren't anything connected with sales training, right? Anything that's going to improve somebody's well-being, anything that's going to improve somebody's confidence, for me is just super important, especially at this period where there's just so much turmoil out there in the world. Next up, structure. I understand that some people will find this really difficult to get their heads around, but honest to God, I could not urge you to move away from traditional sales and marketing. It's just you're creating silos, and silos create barriers, and barriers are just problems that are going to make you less agile. It's going to make you less efficient and less productive. So call whatever it is you want, but bring sales and marketing together. Call it growth, call it revenue. It's up to you what you want to call it, but get rid of the traditional titles of sales and marketing and focus the teams around revenue and growth, which is where we should be, right? We shouldn't be focusing on sales and marketing. We should be focusing on revenue and growth. And just some statistics there. According to Forrester, let me read this. Organizations with aligned sales and marketing teams see an average of 32% annual revenue growth. Less aligned companies see a decline of 7% in growth. So, again, there's lots of case studies, there's lots of data to back this up. And if you're in sales, if you're in marketing and you're listening to this, it's just a job title. It's not life or death. It's just a job title, right? And what's more important is your success, the company's success. So don't get hung up on job titles. I genuinely believe that great marketeers can sell, and great salespeople can do marketing. And if you go on LinkedIn, there's lots of salespeople, I would argue, doing marketing, social selling, whatever you want to call it. They're doing, some form of digital marketing there, by sharing content and having conversations. So the more that we bring sales and marketing together, get rid of those traditional silos, I promise it's going to be something that you'd never regret. Next up, forgive me if this sounds obvious, but put the plug in the bottom of your bath, right? If, all of us, every single business has got some level of churn. Clients are going to leave through no fault of yours. They will leave because they maybe went bankrupt. They maybe didn't survive COVID. They maybe leave because they were taken over by another organization. They maybe left because there was some form of restructuring. You will lose clients through no fault of your own. And the problem with that is that, 70% of next year's revenue, 70% of next year's revenue is coming from this year's clients. It's going to come from the clients you've got now. So, what plans have you got in place to actually reduce that churn? What clients have you got in place? What plans have you got in place to upsell and cross-sell and lock those companies in? Because your clients are your competition's biggest prospects. So, what's your strategy there around client retention? Have you got a strategy, right? And how's that working out for you? Because most people leave not when they're necessarily dissatisfied. Most clients leave when they feel unloved, and they feel unloved when they're just ignored. And, if you're busy, you're trying to win new business, it's super easy to then ignore your existing clients who maybe your bread and butter, who've been there for years, and you just take them for granted. Just think about, what could I do that would wow them next week? What can I do? In fact, don't wait till next week. What can I do tomorrow that's going to wow them? What can I do that's going to make them think, I'm glad I'm still working with that particular organization. So, client retention is hugely important, and you need to make sure that you've got these clients locked in through some form of account management. And, I just could not emphasize how important that is. Next thing, sell up. What do I mean by selling up? Well, recessions, and, some of you might be saying, but Ian, we're not in a recession. Well, I think technically we're not in a recession, but I was reading something that in the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ, I beg your pardon, in the States, if you take out 2 or 3 big stocks, such as Apple, Tesla, and I think Microsoft, if you take out those 3 big stocks, we're in a recession. Technically it would be in a recession. So, I'm obviously a fan of Microsoft because I use Teams and all their other suite of products, but how long can their growth keep going? Apple, again, they're phenomenally successful. How long can that keep growing, especially with the turmoil in throughout the world? And Tesla cars, electric cars. Now, that might be fantastic, for the net zero people. However, each of these cars has got some form of carbon footprint by oil that they're using to manufacture them. And if the oil price has gone up, then that's going to affect Tesla as much as it is anybody else. Tesla are not building cars based on solar power or wind power. So think about the upset and churn in the market, and where can you capitalize on it? Because whereas before in sales we would typically ring somebody up and they would, you get the same old, happy with existing vendor, they weren't interested in changing. Well, when there's turmoil in the market, when there's a recession, people are looking, right, to save money. So what I would suggest you do is, if you're selling a service, and let's just pretend that the service is at $50 an hour. If you're selling a $50 an hour service, and previously, your competition, at a higher level, will be selling at $75 an hour. Start to target their clients. Move up that pyramid. move up the pyramid and start to target bigger organizations, right? And I'm not suggesting that you could maybe jump from 50 to 75, but the guys who are paying $75 an hour are looking now to pay $60 an hour, $65 an hour. So you can get a jump there if you work out strategically, right, where those clients are, and you can actively and proactively target them. So don't sell down, don't discount. And I know it's really easy for me to say don't discount, but think about this. Inflation, I believe, last year was 7%. Inflation was 7%. So this calendar year, if you've not increased your prices by at least 7%, then you're taking a pay cut. You're taking a pay cut if you've not increased your 2022 prices by at least 7%. Now, if you're a salesperson listening to this thinking, well, that's the company, it's not me. You know what? It's not, because inflation means everything else has gone up. Your earnings have maybe stayed the same, but you know the cost of energy's gone up. The cost of petrol in your car's gone up. So you're not actually earning as much. So it does, as a salesperson, it does me no benefit to drop the prices, because the commission, 10% of 100,000 is going to be much less than 10% of 90,000, much more, I beg your pardon, than 10% of 90,000. So I don't want to drop my prices. I want to hold my prices so that my commission levels are up. And I know it's not all about money, but I'm telling you, the people that say it's not all about money have got loads of money, right? And if you've not got money, it certainly makes life easier, right? You've got more choices to make when you've got money. So I get that it's not all about money, but equally, money is certainly something that we need to consider in this. Next up, outbound plus inbound, and this has been transformational for our own business. We're traditionally, as a sales training organization, we would be focused on the outbound stuff, and yeah, that was great, and yes, that really worked. However, the pandemic came along, and the traditional methods of outbound were certainly not as productive, and we had to develop our own inbound strategy, and then working out how to combine the two and optimize them has, as I said, been absolutely transformational for our own business. So, outbound, right? Outbound is only 50% of the issue, right? You've got to get that out, the inbound working as well, and you've got to be able to combine the two, because if you don't, it's going to take so much more time and so much more resources to do this. So combine outbound, combine inbound. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, again, please feel free to come back to us. And I will show you some of the things that we do, warts and all. I will show you warts and all what we do, what works and what doesn't work in terms of the outbound and inbound. And it's just super important that you've got that strategy. If you're waiting on the phone ringing or Outlook pinging, right? You're going to struggle through this. You've got to be proactive. You've got to get on the front foot. And you've got to have a strategy for doing that. And part of this again is aligning with the merge of sales and marketing. We don't have sales and marketing in this in our own business here. If you go and look at my job title, sales trainer, sales coach, yes, I've got that up there, but that's because that's what my ideal client profile on LinkedIn is looking for. But as a business, we don't have sales and marketing. We all work together, and we're focused on growth. Everything for us is around the growth. So again, inbound, outbound, it's super important, and feel free to contact me if you need some help in that. And again, if you're a salesperson, there's lots that you can do, right, in terms of merging the inbound, outbound to actually make your life easier, so that you've got that warm flow of leads coming in. I was lucky enough this morning to take a call from Malaga, Spain, all the way out there in Spain, Malaga, Spain, take a call from Malaga, Spain, and I've managed to secure a new client there. So once you get this stuff up and running, to a large degree, it's like a snowball rolling down a mountain. It starts to, it just starts to grow its own momentum, and it's just fantastic. So please feel free to message me on that one. Next up, selling through the funnel. And this has been something that we're working on to try and improve all the time. Let's pretend your sales cycle is 3 months long. What are you doing during those 3 months, right, to actually get that client over the line? What are you doing? And I'm not talking about your pipeline management. I'm not talking about the follow-up calls and everything. I'm talking about nurturing the deal through the entire sales process. About making sure that they've got the different content at the different stages. And it's positioning you, it's positioning your offer, it's differentiating you in your business, and it's creating some urgency to close the deal. So, think about that initial inquiry. From that inquiry, what do you actually do with it? No, it's not just about sales. Again, work with marketing to make sure, well, what are they going through? What's their decision-making process? And what content can we stick in front of them at the different stages that are going to make them think or help them understand that we are going to be the right partner for them? And it doesn't just stop when the purchase order comes in. Selling through the funnel is right past, the purchase order and the first engagement. It's super important to have the next stages planned so that you've got your cross-selling and upselling. And because your clients' needs are going to change, and you've got to be able to anticipate that. And the best way to anticipate that, or to help anticipate that, is start sharing with them, the content that is going to lead them down that path, so that they almost think that you're a mind reader. So from the initial lead, the initial sales inquiry, right the way through to some form of partner account management, you should have that journey mapped out, and you should be sharing content at different stages to help you facilitate the conversation and move them through your sales pipeline. Next up, technology. I'm not going to talk much about technology. I'm not a tech expert. I do love tech. I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm not just talking about, in regards to remote selling, I'm not just talking about Teams and Zoom. I think they're great, but I'm sure you can use these by now. I'm thinking more around things like anything that you're doing for client engagement, your website. Number one, is your website being found? If it's being found, are people engaging with it? Are they filling out things like the web forms? Have you got the email automation in place? What happens at the end of the automation? What is your entire journey there for that client? And where is sales and marketing actually then interacting to help turn those leads, those cold leads, to warm leads, and warm leads into inquiries. So a lot of companies I see, they're stuck with what I would describe as a legacy technology. They've maybe got a legacy website, and it's what I would describe as a brochure website. When was the last time you got a lead from your website? When was the last time you closed a deal from your website? We're lucky enough we get leads as part of our inbound strategy. We're getting leads every single day from the website. We've got more leads than we can actually follow up at the moment, right? So if you've got a website that isn't actually performing, right, and delivering you leads, then again, that's something that you need to invest in. We're not web developers. We're not here to sell you websites. However, I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction in terms of the strategy and what you should be doing, so that you could become what I would describe as a more educated buyer. And if you're not sure about investing in your website, again, if you're asking salespeople to actually go out and sell, it's tough generating your own sales leads. And I think that it's only reasonable that the company is providing some leads for the salespeople. That's what marketing's supposed to be there for. So if marketing, who own the website, if that website's not delivering leads, then that's a huge missed opportunity that you should be addressing. And again, we're not a website provider, but it's something that we would encourage you to take on board. Other things in terms of technology, I've seen clients with laptops with no cameras, monitors with no sound. you've got to get up to date. You've got to get all the kit to be able to sell remotely. I mean, I've even got one of these. I don't know what you call it. These studio lights and everything in here, so that we can. Let me just put this on. I maybe should have had that on before, but hey ho. Having all the lighting, having all the kit is going to make things so much easier. That actually is so much better. Right? There we go. Yeah. Isn't technology amazing? Next up, so start a TV production company. Again, you might find this a little bit bizarre, but the world has changed. It's never going back to where it is, and content is king. So once you've got the content, that's great, but how are you going to actually distribute that content? And I don't mean literally start a TV production company, but I want you to become content broadcasters. The more that you broadcast content, the more successful you're going to be. People are going to, if it's the right content, and again, this goes back to really having a deep understanding of your ideal client profile and the sorts of business pains they've got. If you've got a really deep understanding of that, then the content will resonate with them. And again, that call this morning came from a content that was ended up being shared over to Spain. So all this stuff works. And just to give you some insight, we do not do. We've got a small presence on Twitter, small presence on YouTube. We don't do Instagram, don't do Facebook, don't do anything like that. We focus on terms of the content broadcast. We focus on Google because there are 40,000 searches per second. And we focus on Google, and we also focus on LinkedIn because there are 720 million B2B execs on LinkedIn. So those are the two platforms we do. That doesn't mean that you can't get business from Facebook or Instagram. It's just that we're a small company, and the danger is that instead of doing one thing really well or two things really well, you end up doing 3 or 4 things averagely. So think of the channels that you're using to broadcast. Think about how good, how professional it is, and how effective it is, and then make some decisions yourself. And just because you maybe come off Facebook now doesn't mean you can't go back to it. But or maybe you stay on Facebook and drop LinkedIn. Everybody's different. Everybody's market's different. But the point is, you need to evaluate that and make sure that you're being as effective as possible and on these different platforms. And you cannot be effective on any platform without great content. Content is king, right? You've got to get the right content. You've got to be able to repurpose the content. So typically our own content is repurposed up to 11 times. We repurpose one piece of content up to 11 times. This particular webinar will be repurposed. This particular webinar will be repurposed. So you've got to be ruthlessly efficient. And we just don't have the time to make any content that could only be used in one particular instance. So think about how you can repurpose content as many times as possible. Last one, think about the poorly crafted emails that you maybe receive. Think about the poorly crafted attempts to sell to you on LinkedIn, right? Where people connect, immediately start to sell to you. Think about the quality of the telephone calls, the cold calls that you get, or indeed warm calls. Right? Is that what you want your brand to sound like? Right? The fastest way to kill a brand is by poor outbound. If you don't get that outbound right, in many cases that's your prospects or customers' first interaction with your brand, and unless it's positive, right, they're just going to go next. So think about how you're doing that outbound. Think about your messaging, and think about if I was to receive these emails, these phone calls, these LinkedIn messages, is that something that would actually make me think more positive of the brand or less positive of the brand? It's just fraught with danger. We've seen a lot of people at the start of COVID jumping on LinkedIn because they were traditional salespeople who could no longer sell in the field because of the lockdowns. All of a sudden, they jump on LinkedIn, and everybody's getting spammed on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn itself has become much less effective, much more difficult to get people to engage. But don't let that put you off, because all the more people that are doing something in a maybe less than perfect way, it gives you an opportunity to be the diamond, that the one that stands out. So LinkedIn is still super important. It still delivers really well for us consistently in terms of new leads and business. So, but just think about how you're actually portraying your brand out there, because it is super important. Okay, so just before we stop, I'm just going to double check if there are any questions. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to stick them in the Q&A. Okay, could I explain more about inbound and outbound in detail, please? So that's probably about many hours of conversation. Let me try and summarize it for you, that will maybe help you understand. So, and I'm going to share with you what we do, and you can check this for yourself. So, from a sales perspective, you can either there's people who are actively searching for your products and services, and those that aren't aware that they even need your products and services. Now, the ones that are actively searching for your products and services, you could argue that they're easier to sell to, because they're already in the market. And at any point in time, there's probably only, I think, 4% of your total addressable market. Only 4% of them are actively buying. I'm sure in sales you've come across the scenario where you've called somebody and it was just the wrong timing. So there's only 4% of your total addressable market actively buying at any one time. So where are those people, right? I think it's marketing. The organisation, I think it was Marketing Professionals, did a survey, and up to 57% of the buying process, I beg your pardon, is done online now. So people are 57% through the buying process. Now, what do I mean by that? They've not issued a purchase order, but they've started the journey through awareness, some form of needs analysis, and they're evaluating the different options before they contact the salesperson. Now, I would argue that many of them have already made their mind up, but they just haven't actually placed a purchase order. So typically what they do is, the first thing they're going to do when they need a supplier for a particular problem, if they cannot fix the problem internally, if they don't know anybody that can fix the problem, they're going to jump online, they're going to Google it. So if you're not going to be found on page 1 of Google, then you're not going to be, there's business just passing you by. There's lots and lots of business just passing you by. Now, getting on page 1 of Google, you're probably going to say to yourself, well, wait a minute, I've tried that and it didn't work. I can't get to page 1 of Google. I think I shared with you earlier, if you want more tactical information on remote selling, Google the phrase remote sales coaching. Now you will see closers on page 1 there. Now that gets us business. Now, where does that then interact with the outbound side? So that's creating inbound leads for us, and inbound leads that we're converting to revenue. Where does that interact with the outbound? Well, the content is specifically researched and designed in a way that we know it's content that our ideal client profile is actively looking for. And therefore, if we know what we're looking for, we can design that content, we can then make it really effective. And that's the content that we then share when we're doing the outbound stuff. Now, sometimes you're going to create content because you think, well, this is a really great idea. This is really going to be a hit with our clients. Well, sometimes that's correct and sometimes it's not. So what we did was we do all by research, and all the content is done that we create is done. It starts off by being heavily researched, so we know people, our ideal client profile, they're actually looking for it, and it then helps us, right? When we've got the any form of leads that we're nurturing, what we then do is we know we've got the content to share with them throughout the entire sales process. And when we've got inbound inquiries, when we've got outbound inquiries, typically what's happening is that they will ask us questions and we've got the content to hand to share to them. And immediately we're sharing the content, we're immediately positioned as thought leaders, subject matter experts, which is what I would suggest that you guys need to be. You should look to be the thought leader. You should look to be that subject matter expert. So the inbound, outbound, it starts off by doing research. You've got to know your ideal client profile. You've got to know their business pains. And then from that, you create the content. And that's the content that the outbound people are going to be using to actually hunt down prospects. But also, that's the content that is going to generate the inbound inquiries, such as anybody searching for the phrase remote sales coaching will hopefully go over to go to Google, have a look at our listing on page 1 of Google there, and they would be motivated to hopefully either pick up the phone, go to the website, fill out a form or something. So hopefully that's explained a little bit about the outbound, inbound, the way that we bring that together. But again, feel free to contact me. Anybody can contact me if they want more details on that. And I could not. I know that some of you are going to think, well, wait a minute, we're never going to get to page 1 of Google. Listen, we were there. We had 4 websites. We'd spent thousands, tens of thousands on websites. Not once did we get to page 1 of Google, right? And until the whole pandemic got us to focus down and work out how to do it and work out a strategy around it. And I think at the moment we've got around just over 120 words on keywords on page 1 of Google. So our problem is not lead generation. Our problem is delivery. Making sure that we've got enough trainers and coaches now so that we can deliver and respond to all the leads. So inbound, outbound is super important. But again, the content that we're sharing that was generated for page 1 of Google is equally important to the outbound team when we're doing the outbound sales. So hopefully that's going to answer that question. But again, if you need to know more, please feel free to come back to me. Okay, next question is around mapping the selling through the funnel, mapping the account management. So just think about the different stages. Think about the different people in the customer's decision-making unit. If you're in business to business, it's going to be at least 6 people, maybe up to 16 people are going to be involved in that decision-making, right? In terms of, are we going to choose this company or not? So think about the different roles, think about the different responsibilities, and think about what content is going to make them, give you a thumbs up. When they're in the boardroom discussing who they're going to award this next project to. Think about finance director, VP finance is going to have very different roles and responsibilities and objectives to, for example, a sales director. So think about how you can create content that is going to appeal to each of them, right? And how it's going to be relevant and how it's going to make them think, what, these are the people that we want to deal with. And then work out, so you've got the different personas there, and then work out at what different stages of the process do you need to give them information. And this doesn't need to be a 50-page thought leadership document or a white paper. This can be simple snippets that you're sharing that are helping them think, what, these people really understand what it is we're trying to achieve. And just think of different snippets. It could be customer testimonials. It could be anything. But you've got to have that journey mapped out so that you're tracking them through the sales funnel, and you're actually providing what former VP of Microsoft, Bob McDowell, used to say as marketing provides that sales cover for the troops, air cover, beg your pardon, for the troops. So make sure that you're actually using that content in a way that's helping the salespeople pull those deals through the sales pipeline. Okay, that's it. As I said, if you've got more questions on remote selling, you're more than welcome to email or message me on LinkedIn. If you're watching the recording on YouTube, please like, share and subscribe, as it helps the algorithm. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great sales day. Thank you, folks.